Hello students, welcome to week 4 for COM 420. This week we're focusing on the ideas of cultivation and digital engagement and where they intercede and work together. We're in week 4, so the week 4 agenda tells us that we are reading chapter 7 and 8, and we're also working on our case study related to Paris, Disney in Paris, a handout that's attached to Blackboard, and that is specifically related to discussion number 4. We're watching 2 videos on the idea of cultivation theory and the effects that television on society has on the storyteller, specifically from the theorists themselves. And we're completing discussion board number 4 with an original post due Friday and replies due on Sunday, as well as completing our midterm. Our midterm is our book review, so if you think back to week 1, we established and selected and provided a rationale for a book. The list is listed on Blackboard, so you should be finishing that book up now from the list that you chose, and you're going to write at least a 4-page APA-style review utilizing the information here, and that is in Blackboard. So there are 4 things that you will be focusing on within this book review. The first thing is to establish a background and introduction. Remember to clearly tell the reader what the nature of the book is. Remember that the audience has not read your work, so in your background and introduction you need to introduce characters, principal points, and things of that nature that provide some type of summarization of the main points and characters to get the readers to gauge into interest, determine if the author's text was adequate in reaching the intended audience, and were some of the readers easily lost, or was the text too easy. The second point in your book review is you need to identify major principles or characters. So only deal on the most pressing issues on the book. You will not be able to obviously cover each character or idea or what principles or points you agreed with, so focus on what are the most important aspects of the book you want to analyze in that section. The next thing you need to keep in mind is the organization. So the purpose of a book review is to critically evaluate the text, not just inform readers about it. I want a critical evaluation of what your thoughts are from a communication student's perspective about the book, leaving plenty of room for you to evaluate it, and that your summary is brief. Since this is a 4-page book review, your summary should probably be no more than about a half a page or so. It shouldn't take up more than 25% of your paper. So determine what kind of balance you need to strike between summarizing the text, presenting the main points, and then critically evaluating them. So in your evaluation, you do need to choose one or a few points to discuss the book. What worked well for you? How does this work compared to others? How does it fit with the full course content? What does it teach us about global digital engagement? What did you learn about it related to your course of study, and things of that nature? So this does need to be 4 pages. Those 4 pages do not include your cover page and reference pages, so keep that in mind. And if you have any questions, do reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to address those questions early on in the week. Discussion board number 4 asks that you read the case study attached in Blackboard about Disney in Paris. What you're going to be doing is it's a case study on when they opened the Paris Disney and some communicative pitfalls that occurred because of it. That really dealt with some global and intercultural relations and communication that really enhances some of the content from this course. So your original post needs to be at least 400 words, and that's due on Friday. And you need to reply to 2 students with at least 50-word responses by Sunday. So there's 3 questions you're going to ask. After reading the paper, you're going to answer, what assumptions did Disney make about the taste and preferences of French consumers, and which of these assumptions were correct or not? 2, what might Disney have had a more favorable initial experience in France? What might have led them to have that? And what steps might have it taken to reduce the mistakes associated with the launch of Euro Disney? And then 3, in retrospect, was France the best choice for a location for Euro Disney, and what could have been a better choice? So this will all make a lot of sense once you've read the case study, because it outlines that for you clearly, but those are the questions you will answer once you've completed that. Cultivation theory is a theory that's important to go over this week and watch some of the videos on it. It's developed by Gardner and Gross in the 70s. It tells us that heavy media consumers are more susceptible to media messages and the belief that those messages are real and valid based off of the exposure to that given media. So really, in a nutshell, it's telling us that cultivation of attitudes are based on attitudes that are already present in our society, and media takes those attitudes and represents them in a bundled and different packaging to their audiences. Multimedia cultivates the status quo, it doesn't challenge us. What it's telling us is that, in a nutshell, cultivation theory is derived and developed under the assumption that the more exposure you have to a given form of media, let's just say television, because that's what they used in their original research, so the more television you watch, the more likely you are to cultivate attitudes about those particular cultivate attitudes about society based on what those particular television shows display about society. So if you watch a show like The Goldbergs. It takes place in 1980s, and it's a sitcom, so a situational comedy, coming of age story, and it shows you particular 80s culture and trends and things of that nature. If you repeatedly only watch that, that's the only exposure you have to the 1980s in that particular era, you're going to cultivate attitudes about the 1980s based off of that form of media that you have consumed. Same thing with shows like Modern Family. Your perceptions and thoughts about family could be cultivated, your attitudes could be cultivated based off of what that show tells us about families, if that's the only media you consume about family life. So media cultivation theories tells us we cultivate attitudes about ideas and things based off of what we see on television or other forms of media. And not only that, it tells us that television not only influences our perception of the world, we tend to only watch television or consume, now it's expanded to social media and different types of media because it's more detailed now than in the 70s, but we only consume media that cultivates attitudes that we align with from an ideological perspective. So we're only going to watch things that don't rub us the wrong way because we want to cultivate and confirm those attitudes we have about whatever the topic is that media is portraying. Particularly what came out of this is the mean world syndrome. The more violence you watch through media, the more you actually believe the world is dangerous. So people never want to leave their house because all the news tells us is that people are dying in car crashes and getting shot on the streets. That's not necessarily true, but if that's all you see and that's all your perception is of the world, you are going to think the world is more violent because that's all you see reported on the news. So that's an idea of cultivation theory. To recap, the week 4 agenda tells us we're reading chapter 7 and 8. We're reading the case study on the Disney Paris handout, as well as watching a couple videos on cultivation theory. We're completing discussion board number 4 with the original post due Friday and your replies due on Sunday, as well as your midterm. If you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you. God bless.